everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Extreme Improv podcast. My name is David Pustansky, and today on the show we are joined by an improviser from the Netherlands called Victor Romijn. How are you doing, Victor?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Yeah, good. Okay, so tell us a little bit about who you do improv with, where you do improv, and so on and so forth.
Well, I started about 15 years ago, I think, in Amsterdam, and I've joined a student improv company there for about 10 years. And 3 years ago, I quit that team. It was a placebo, it was called, because I got kids and travel time up and down to the rehearsals was really, not that good. So then I started another team, which is called the One Trick Ponies. And I train with them once a month, and we don't perform any shows, but we just play for fun. And
that's interesting. So, you haven't done any shows. Do you plan to do any shows in the future, or is it purely like a social thing? Or
I've done 2 shows over the last year, which both weren't that crowded in terms of audience.
Right.
But yeah, I still like playing and performing for audiences, but it just doesn't really come that way, or how can you say it?
And why do you think that is? Is that just with this particular group, or is it just how things are out there, or what?
No, it's not just the group. It's also like all my friends and family have seen me perform numerous times. So they've grown a little bit tired of it. So whenever we organize a show, we usually just invite our own friends, because people don't really go to improv just out of nowhere, because it's not that big a scene in the Netherlands. So if our friends and family don't come, there's not much people left that come.
Yeah, certainly. Well, that's an interesting thing. Just because I've been into a lot of places around the world to do improv, and it's interesting just how it still feels like it's an emerging art form. It feels like it's something that some places don't understand. Like in the UK, in England, if you go to London, then there's an awful lot of improv. But if you go outside of London, you'll go to lots of places and put on a show, and people won't quite know what it is that they've gone to see. They'll think it's stand-up comedy, or
exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. What do you have any thoughts on what could be done to educate audiences or change people's perception to try?
There's been some improv television shows, so most people know a bit better what it's about. But the television shows have the downside that it's all puns and funny jokes about famous people, where improv is so much broader than that. It's not only puns and fun jokes, it's also like great theater and beautifully played and crafted stories.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be many things. And the thing I've said a couple of times recently when speaking on this podcast or just in interviews is that at the moment, people, if you took music, you could break music down into rock and roll, into rap music, into classical music, into pop. But there is still just the idea that improv just means, like, whose lines it anyway? It just means games. It just means puns and jokes, like you said. Exactly. And I think it will be something that happens within time, that is just a case of educating the audience that there's more to it.
Yeah, there was a solution that we thought of when I was playing with Placebo to make more themed shows, and for instance, a werewolves themed show based on the game. It's called Mafia in the States, I think.
Yeah.
So we really build a show around that, which broadened our audience. So it's not
okay. So just to see if we're talking about the same game, Mafia or Werewolf, is that where one person at night kills someone else and everyone else wakes up and you have to interview? Okay. How does that work as an improv show?
Well, you start off with about you play it with, I think, about 9, 8, 10 people, something like that. When you start off introducing everybody in their own natural habitat, For about 20 minutes, you get to know everybody. Everybody gets to know each other. So all the characters have at least two other characters that they interact with. And after about 20 minutes, the first night comes. So there's a storyteller or a host that introduces the game part of the show. All the players get a number, and three of them are picked as wolves by the host. And only the wolves know that they're wolves, and they don't even know from each other that they're wolves. So you only know your own role as a player. And after that, people just keep playing the story, and then it turns into night. The lights get dimmed. All the players stand in a lineup, and behind their backs, everybody puts up the fingers of the number that they want to have killed, and the host will walk behind everyone's back and see the ones that the wolves will kill. So the audience doesn't know who the wolf is and who's a villager. So one of the people dies, which is really sad. And the people or the characters that interacted with that person can be sad as well, but the rest doesn't really care because otherwise it would be a very sad show.
Yeah.
And the story continues.
How does it work with the characters that have been killed? How does is the actor written out? Are they on the stage as a dead body?
Yeah, well, no, they walk towards the musicians and start forming like a choir.
Okay, so cool.
They could interact as a ghost, but that doesn't really happen that often.
Yeah.
And they aren't actually part of the story anymore.
When I've played this game just as an exercise, as a more social thing with a class or something, mm-hmm. I'll always have the element of like a seance or something to keep the dead players involved. But yeah, their ability to vote only comes down to tie breaking if we have a draw. Okay, moving on from this. So, why improv is the next question I've got for you. What led you? What is it about improv that you really enjoy? What is it you find fascinating, and so on?
Yeah, it started out like 15 years ago, and my then girlfriend was the head of a student association, and they had a workshop, and she said, come on, Vic, please join me. But I was like, oh man, theater, I'm not really good at that, I can't do that. But eventually she took me there, and it was one of the best nights of my life. I had so much fun, and I found out that I had a sense of humor, sense of timing, and it was the greatest art form because you won't have to prepare anything for it. And I'm a really lazy person, so this was actually very good for me.
Okay, that's cool. So if this is how, did you do acting in any other way, or is this your introduction? No. So what is your background, Victor?
My background is I'm at the moment I'm an onboarding consultant, and I've studied communication science and social psychology.
Oh, that's interesting. Do you find that impacts or plays into anything usefully in improv?
No, not per se. I'd say maybe some storytelling and content-wise. I think I've learned a lot from improv that I use in my work or in my life.
That's interesting.
Like applied improvisation, which is like listening good or be very bold with your statements, which can really help. Stuff like that, which really helps your life move forward.
Okay, fascinating. Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to improv, you mentioned about it doesn't always have to be puns or something, but then you say you've got a sense of humour. Where do you fall? Do you prefer to play things that are comedic? Do you like doing dramatic improv ever?
Yeah,
what's your style?
I like both. I really love the shooters that they do in Whose Line, the scenes from a hat. I'm cracking up at all the times. But I really like seeing good, well-performed show. One of the teams that I've been training, because I'm an improv trainer as well, they did like the best show ever. But there was actually almost no puns. It was just so well played and realistic and dramatic. It's like, yeah, I can really enjoy that as well.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so what would you say is the thing that you're most confident about when it comes to improv?
About myself?
Yeah, or just within what do you feel most confident performing?
Yeah.
Or
Well,
yeah,
I really love the really technical games. The more I need to think about it, the better it is, because then I don't think about it, and that makes it more fun.
yeah,
Like one of my favorite games is we call it the game flux, which is one story or scene of like 5 minutes, but performed in the style of 4 or 5 different games
yeah.
within
And
the 5 minutes.
okay, and what kind of game styles are included within that?
Like the switch change, dubbing each other's voices, doing a survivor where people get left out, switching roles, stuff like that.
Okay, it sounds cool. I don't think I've come across one that mixes those styles like that together.
Yeah.
What about things that you feel least confident in? What is it that when you're on stage where a game comes up, or like a technique or a suggestion comes up, and you're like, oh god, I've got to do this now and I hate it? Anything?
Well, for me, it's the guessing games. I really don't like these games. It's they're better as in a training to learn your style, or how do you say it? But as a performance, no, I don't think that's good for audiences.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Guessing games can sometimes they can be a slow build.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so
When I come across one and get to perform one, I usually just how do you call it? Do it very over the top. So at least I had fun myself.
yeah, well, do you know what? There's something I find there's something in seeing a performer on stage enjoying what they're doing, even if you can tell that they're not really sure what to do or whatever. As long as they're having a good time, I think the audience, they can thrive off of that.
Yeah, I fully agree on that.
Yeah. Okay, so what would you say is the strangest thing that's ever happened on stage, or it could be in a workshop or rehearsal, that's something unexpected, or an anecdote that you've had whilst doing improv?
Yeah, I was playing a scene with 3 scene partners, and we were all having different names, as you should have in different scenes. But then all of a sudden, one of the players got fake stuck in a chair, but called out our actual real names. So that was super confusing, because we thought he was really in panic because he was stuck in a chair, but he wasn't. So that really fucked us up. Yeah, and I still remember it since it was 10 years ago.
How did that resolve itself?
We got really angry at him for fucking us up like that. But it was afterwards. When we found out it wasn't panic, we just continued the show because there was an audience. But afterwards, when we were backstage, we had a good talk with him.
Wow. Okay, so outside of improv a little bit, what is it that is there anything you're passionate about that's completely unimprov related, or it might have some connection, but it doesn't have to be improv related?
Well, besides my improv work, I'm also hosting a pub quiz every month.
Nice.
Which is really fun to do, and I really get a lot of my improv how do you call it, traits that I can use in that. I love doing karaoke, but that's also just winging it and giving it all you can. And just
what's your favorite song to do on karaoke?
Yeah, just recently I did "Fly Me to the Moon" from Sinatra.
Oh yeah, did that go well? Did it go down well?
Yeah, it went really well because you have a lot of awkward timings that you can just wing it, and it sounds great anyway.
Yeah. And do you go to places that are like karaoke bars or there are karaoke nights? Where do you do
No, no,
this?
no, no, not that often. Just sometimes with friends. There are karaoke bars in Amsterdam that I sometimes visit. Not super often, but when I do, I'm like first in line.
Yeah. Okay, so coming back to improv a little bit,
Yep.
what you'd say is the most useful or the best advice or a piece of advice our listeners might listen to that something that's really helped you over the time?
Wow, great question. Best advice is just go for it and trust your guts. Usually, your heart or your body knows stuff before your head does. So when your body says go, you should go, and not when your head says go, because when your head says it, it's too late.
Yeah. Okay, so that's going to bring us on to something that we've recently introduced into the recordings of the show, where
Okay.
we've got some of our games that we'll sometimes play in an audio form, but we're introducing one that's going to play across the entire season as like a challenge, and we'll find out who does the best at this overall.
Okay.
Okay, so what it is what we call an extreme monologue, and we play it like a game of endurance. And the way it works is I'll give you a subject to speak about,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to try to perform a monologue, but you're not allowed to repeat any words whatsoever. And also, you're not allowed to hesitate, which is an extended pause or saying things like or Now, I am throwing you in the deep end here, but are you willing to give this a go?
Challenge accepted.
Okay, now later on the audio, we might spot something where I have failed to spot a mistake. But the idea is that I will listen to you perform the monologue until I spot that you make one of these mistakes of repeating any word whatsoever, even small ones like and, if, or the, or
Yes.
if you give an extended hesitation, a pause, or saying things like or then whatever stage that happens at, we'll stop the game, and that's the end of that game. But then later on, we'll see where you fall in the rankings of all of the performers who have come on the show.
All right. All right.
So
Bring it.
we're quite early into the recordings of this, and I think the current winner is only 16 seconds in. So at the moment, you're trying to beat 16 seconds without repeating.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you the subject to speak on, and I'm going to give you the subject to speak on life in Amsterdam. So I'll make it something nice and easy for you to talk about. Okay? And in your own time, here you go.
If I could say something about life in Amsterdam, it is that it's a great city to live in. There are a lot of bikes.
Oh, I'm going to stop you there. This
Fuck,
may be a mistake.
shit, balls.
I think you may have repeated the word if, but I think you definitely repeated the word in. So we had life in Amsterdam and then
Fuck,
a repetition
balls.
of in. Don't worry. So again, I can check the timing later just to see what it is from the recording. But I think that was a solid 13.49 seconds.
Yeah.
So hasn't quite won it, but later on down the line, we could get you back on the show, because I always like the idea of, because it's a new idea for the show. I'm introducing it, but it's completely throwing you in the deep end, and I'm very aware of this. So another time, once you've thought about it, then it would be great to see the improvement. Okay, so very quickly, I'm going to come on to a bit more quick fire questions.
Yeah, perfect.
And so these might be improv related. These might not be improv related. We could perhaps expand on some of the answers if we need to, but otherwise they're going to be quite quick. So, what scares you?
Actually, not much. My children dying.
Oh God! Wow, that's understandable, but it was also kind of a shocking answer, right? Okay. Well, not shocking that would be it, but people might have just been like performing in some way or spiders. But yeah, that's quite dramatic.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite movie?
2012 is one of my all-time favorites
Is that
because
the
yeah,
disaster movie?
yeah, I really dig disaster movies. The best disaster movies have four elements in them. It's as a brilliant scientist, a hero with a broken family, American president, and big buildings being blown up. Usually buildings with a lot of cultural value.
Okay, good answer to the question. What's the most unique or interesting place you have ever traveled to in your life?
That should be Cape Tribulation in Australia.
Oh wow! So, what made that so interesting to you?
It's my sister lives very close to there. We had her wedding over there, and it's where the jungle meets the Great Barrier Reef. So it's like, yeah, so amazing in terms of nature. Yeah, it was really such a beautiful place, and yeah, everything was just aligned perfectly.
Okay, if you could perform improv with any person in the world, who would you like to perform improv with?
Oh wow! I'd really love to play with Colin Mockery from Whose Line.
Yeah, good
He's amazing.
choice.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question is short or long form?
Both, but that's obviously not the best answer. So I'd go for long form.
Okay, if you lean one way, it's slightly towards the long form.
Yeah.
Okay. What is success to you?
Success is meeting your own expectations.
Oh, very, very good answer. Okay. What is your best impression?
Frank Sinatra, I hope.
Yeah. And
Fly me to the moon. Yeah, that's how fun.
there you go. Wow. I wasn't actually going to ask you to do it, but you launched in there. So well done for you. Okay. If you could change one thing in history, what would it be?
Wow. Climate change.
Ah, very interesting answer. Okay. What's your favorite sport?
Ultimate frisbee.
Frisbee, ultimate frisbee. That's yeah. We've never had that one come up before. Okay.
That's
And
really a great sport. I've I've played it while I was studying, and it's such a great sport because there's no referees because everybody is grown up enough to know that they've made a mistake.
yeah,
And also part of the game or the tournaments is that you can't only win first prize, but you can also win first prize for best spirit, which is
yeah.
really cool.
Okay. You've kind of already answered about favorite or least favorite with the question game, the guessing games and stuff. But do you have an absolute favorite improv game?
Yeah, I already told it. It's the game
Yeah,
Flux.
that's it. That's the one. Okay. And what's your favorite pun?
Any Second World War related pun will
Oh,
back me up.
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's
Cool.
so sensitive in the Netherlands. But yeah, I really love these kind of puns.
Okay. Okay. So good. Yes. Next thing is you can ask me anything. What would you like to ask me?
So you perform in England, right?
You saw me perform in England.
No, so you're performing in
Oh, sorry.
England.
I thought you said yes. So I perform in England. Yes.
Are you doing weekly shows or stuff like that?
Oh, has it just paused on us here?
No.
Oh, hello, hello. I didn't catch your question.
Okay. How can you get enough audience to play weekly shows?
Wow. Getting enough audience. That is the ultimate question. That is something which I've been trying to work out for several years. I think, and probably somewhere I'll need to do a lot more thought on this to do like a big in-depth podcast on it. But I think you have to do a little bit, well, probably a lot rather, but you need to do a little bit every so often of all of the different methods you can think of. So if it's social media, if it's putting up posters and flyers, if it's contacting the press, I think you have to do all of it. And there is a thing that people say about where if you see something 6 times before you decide to buy it, you'll end up like buying it. So if you see a show advertised 6 times, after the 6th time will be when you decide to do it. So I think a lot of people just do things on social media, or they might go and put up a poster and think the work is done. But I think you just have to do all of it. And just touching on what we were saying earlier, I really do believe there's a big element of audiences out there think that improv is just whose lines it anyway, and that improv just means all improv just is one thing. But it, like you say, it can be many things. And I just think the more time goes on, the more people get educated and exposed to what the different things are, the more subgenres there'll be. There'll probably come a time where we don't just say improv meaning games or short form, or we won't just say it's like, oh, I'm doing a long form improv show. They'll probably end up developing their own unique, like there's a Harold or whatever. People will know what that means, and they won't even mention the word improv just because you don't need to say rock and roll music. You can just say I went to a rock and roll concert, and people knows what that means. So I think in time, just education.
Yeah.
But,
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, go for it.
Here in Netherlands, I see that there's quite a difference between like the teams that perform in cities and teams from more rural areas, in terms of the games they play and the developments they go through.
Yeah,
is that something that's shown in the UK as well?
I think so. Yes, just because London is obviously the biggest area for where there's the most different groups, and you kind of get you get something of everything there, and you get groups that perform at all levels, and some have been going a lot longer, and they are more experimental, and then you'll get some where you feel that when you're watching, it's like, okay, this is a fairly standard short form show. If you go outside of London, once again, you can get long form, and there are some like towns and cities where you get all kinds of stuff, but generally you might just get something where it feels a bit more thrown together, a bit more like they're just emulating whose lines it anyway. And I think it's just the thing I experience most is just that if I go to some towns outside of London, they won't really quite know what an improv show is and what to expect from it.
Yeah, I think part of it is that in the city there's more improvisers, so it's easier to get together with the people that have the same style or interest that you have. Where in more rural areas, it's harder because there's just so much improvisers. So it's harder to make specific teams of people with the same style or same interests.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Also, a very difficult difficult thing is within a group, people wanting to become better and people just want to play for fun. That's within every group that I get in contact with. That's always a struggle.
Yeah, I think it comes down to what people's individual goals are. Some people, like improv is, again, this will end up being another podcast. It's been a great thing for, I've seen people do it because it helps them socially, it helps them with confidence, it helps them like with transferable skills. Other people want to do improv because I want to be a performer and I want to get better and hone this craft and be the best at it and this kind of thing. And sometimes they don't happily sit well with each other or gel. But yeah, within time, I think the ones who want it for the more social thing will find others that want that, and the ones that want to do it and be in like the elite of it, you know, again, everyone will find their level.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, so okay, cool, Victor. I won't keep you too much longer, but is there anything you've got coming up or anything you'd like to plug? Where can people find your improv group on social media or anything like this? If people wanted to get involved, how could they do it?
Well, the ponies, or that's how I call them, the one-trick ponies, we don't play that often, so we don't have any shows coming up. What is interesting is I do some workshops on making characters based on Jung's archetypes, but that's only for Dutch people interesting, I guess, because I won't be flying to England very soon.
Right. But this goes worldwide, so yeah, don't worry about that.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to fly me in to do a workshop on the archetypes of Jung, I'm very happy to do so. That's one of the things I wanted to plug.
Okay, fantastic. Well, this has been fun speaking to you today, Victor, and it would be cool to check back in at a later date just to try a few more like audio improv games as well, and just get some updates on things. Especially when you've got like shows coming up, and we can talk about some of the rehearsals and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, great. It's been fun talking to you too, David.
Perfect. So everyone listening, this has been the Extreme Improv podcast. You can subscribe to us on iTunes and Alexa and Google Play Store and Podbean and Spreaker and all of these other platforms where you'd find your...
I don't know that one.
Oh, I just spoke to Alexa and Alexa spoke out loud in the room. So it might do it again because I mentioned that name. I've not actually had that happen before, so that's a funny occurrence at the end of this. But you can find all of the links to all of our shows at www.extremeimprov.co.uk, and of course we're on all of the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and all that. Just Spotify. Well, okay, so yes, we are on Spotify actually. But yeah, just search Extreme Improv. So until next time, this has been the Extreme Improv podcast. Thank you very much. Bye for now.